So I'm gonna give a little overview of the Shadow Priest rotation really quick. Let me turn off my effects sound so you can actually hear me talk. So basically, your general goal as Shadow Priest is going to be to keep your vampiric uh, touch up on as many targets as possible. Um, and let's pretend, so this is for arena, so let's pretend that these are the DPS. In an ideal world, let's say this is a healer, these are DPS. In an ideal world, you would play close to a healer and CC them with your instant CC off cooldown while you're hitting the DPS, right? So here, um, that's obviously harder to do in actual games because you're going to be the target a lot. You don't have a lot of mobility, so um, that's an ideal world, but a more realistic way to play is to, let's say it's like a, I'll say like a solo shuffle opener. So you kind of expect that people are going to collapse on top of you, and there's a lot of instant cast CC, micro CC interrupts. Um, so you're going to want to try to, at least in an opener, avoid casting, um, hard casting, because it exposes your shadow tree, and if you get kicked, it kind of stops a lot of your damage. So, ideal world, let's say these are the gates, you come out, I would Halo into a Dark Ascension just to get it out so you don't get kicked. And then you can come out, right? Ideally, Shadow Crash, get your dots out. Okay. Press your Devouring Plague. Press your Void Torrent, and now just start pumping Devouring Plagues into it, your instant Void Blast proc, more Devouring Plagues, another proc, and Void Volley. So all of that is instant cast. I forgot to press Void Wraith, but you also would want to press that. Weave that into the rotation. That is all instant cast, and you can get really nice damage out without ever having to hard cast. Um, in an ideal world, like in the opener, in like solo shuffle, I like to use my CC to kind of just break up the enemy go a little bit, just get it out early, because if you wait for the perfect moment to CC, sometimes you just go 30 seconds and you haven't pressed it, and you might as well have pressed it already and it'd be back off cooldown. So I usually like to, even if it's not perfect, like I might fear DPS just to break up their damage for a second, stun something, silence a healer, um, just to help you get momentum rolling. Because I think on SP, if you kind of play passive in the opener, it's really easy to fall on the back foot because um, you kind of you can't move, you don't have much mobility. So one way to break up the enemy damage is to just press your CC and all your instant cast rotation and get your Halo and Dark Ascension off like right out of the gate before they can um, interrupt you, right? Um, and press your PI. I forgot about that. You can just macro this in with your like Dark Ascension if you want or something. Um, but yeah, that's the Void Weaver like opener, I guess you could say, for like a solo shuffle game or something, which is pretty easy. You don't have to hard cast. You don't have to worry about faking and all that stuff. Throughout the game, your priority is just going to be keep dots up, ideally dot the healer as well. Um, and then here's the build, right? So the only thing really worth noting about this build, a lot of it is just passives. Um, but the one thing you do have to keep an eye on is Insidious Ire. So the benefit of this is that if you have all three of your dots, so Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague, up, you buff a lot of the a lot of your burst damage, right? So you buff your Void Torrent, you buff your Mind Blast, which becomes Void Blast after you summon your Rift with Void Torrent. So you buff this, and you also buff your Void Volley, which is the ability that you get to use after you press Void Torrent. So in an ideal world, you want to have your dots up, you press your Devouring Plague. This pink thing is my weak aura for when I have Devouring Plague. So you press Devouring Plague, you can see here full row of dots. Now I will Void Torrent. I'll refresh the DP. I'm going to press my Void Blasts, and then I'll press my Void Volley. So that is all receiving the full Insidious Ire buff from having all 3 dots. That's basically it. Your defensives are kind of here in this row. Fade is, you're usually going to pair it with a phase shift. So I think as you practice it more, you can try to use it to avoid big hits of damage, like a Chaos Bolt, or if you get stuck in like a Warrior's Spear, you can use Fade to run out of it with phase shift. But also, if you're having a hard time like using it to avoid big hits of damage while you're just practicing, you can just press it really on cooldown, because you get a 10% damage reduction from Fade. So it's like a half Iron Bark, you know, to just press it, instant cast. Also, if you flash heal yourself, you get a 10% damage reduction. So if you have Fade and flash heal on yourself, you have basically a full Iron Bark, which you can have technically, if you're super diligent about it, you could have 50% uptime on it. So that's a pretty strong defensive if you ever feel like this sucks, I can't move, I have no mobility. You have some passive tankiness from those 2 things. Your Desperate, where is it? Can't find it, but anyways, this is basically a self-heal, Desperate Prayer. Vampiric Embrace, you want to press this before your big burst, because you passively heal through damage. Dispersion, nice short cooldown. A little tip with Dispersion is you have like a lot of movement speed and you can't be slowed as much. You are immune to movement impairing effects. So if you ever press Dispersion, it's a really nice time to like reposition. That's going to be one of the few times where you have like the ability to just run around without a slow on you. So when you press Disperse, try to like get into a better spot, you know. And that's basically it. I'll go through Archon real quick. Archon is a little bit different. You have your go every minute instead of every 30 seconds with Void Weaver. So it's a little bit less consistent, but the go every minute is really strong. So here's the build. It's a lot more apparitions focused, but you have some damage in between as well, because you still do have Void Torrent. You're just not summoning your Rift without the Void Weaver build. But this is still good damage. You still proc your Seathun, you know, tentacles and stuff. You still get Void Volley. So it's not just every single minute. You have more consistent damage throughout, and that's what I think makes it viable. So for this one, you basically would want to get your dots on all targets, press your Dark Ascension into your Halo, and now you're just going to spam your DPs and your Mindflay Insanities. You can weave in a Void Torrent, and you can see like the burst damage from this one is really high every minute, getting to like 6, sometimes 7 million DPS. So that is also totally viable. And yeah, let me show a couple weak auras that I think are good to have. So I have a lot. I'm a big weak aura guy, but I think one that, even if you're not a big weak aura person, is good to have is Catharsis. It's kind of hard to track it without a weak aura, but basically that's this PvP talent that every 15% of all damage you take, you store it, and you can just press your Shadow Word Pain instant cast to dump the Catharsis. So this is really nice. You can get free hits of up to like 1.52 million, or a little bit more actually, but you just kind of need to keep track of when you've capped it, because it caps really fast. So yeah, there's a weak aura. If you go to the Wago website, there's a bunch of Catharsis weak auras. I use like a converted one that makes it look like this texture here, but there's people who have like the icon that shows the actual number for how much damage it has. So there's a few different ones based on your preference. Um, and that is basically it. I'll show some macros um, that I think are nice. Um, so these are like, I would say don't worry so much about like having arena 1, 2, 3 everything. A lot of people play without that, particularly when you get the rotation down. It's not really a big deal, but it's kind of nice as you get further along. It gives you a little more flexibility. Um, Here's an MD cursor macro that I think is just nice, quality of life. Cancel aura dispersion, that's like if you ever kind of want to come out and say fear the healer or something. Um, a little trick you can, so after you summon your rifts as Void Weaver, you can actually cancel the rift to explode it, like when you choose. And that is off global, so you can actually macro that with another ability. So a really nice macro is to do this. Basically, this combines your Catharsis, which you use through Shadow Repain, with your Rift Explosion, and that is actually like Shadow Priest doesn't really have a good execute, but that is actually a good execute that can hit for like right now probably like 4 million instant cast, and a lot of times people don't expect it. So basically, like you have Insanity, right? I'm going to get my Void Torrent out. I'm gonna empower my Rift with a bunch of Devouring Plagues, and then like I'll press my button to explode it, right? And if I had a Catharsis proc, it would happen at the same time because of that macro. And you know the explosion here did 6 million total damage, but you can see like 2 million individual damage plus your Catharsis for 2 million, so you can get like a nice 4 mil instant cast with that macro. Let's see. Life Grip 1 and 2, you know, it's nice to have. Silence 1, 2, 3. I'm a big believer in Arena 1, 2, 3 macros. Once you get the hang of things, just easier to CC targets. For PI, a lot of people have macros where they constantly are shifting the names of the people on their team, like you know, deleting and entering new names for people and on their team. But I like to use an add-on called Frame Sort. So that basically like always puts my frame at the top and my two teammates down here, and then I just have PI1, PI2. So like, you know, basically I just like look at my frame, and whichever one the DPS is before the game starts, I'll just like shift it around. If my DPS is at party 1, I'll, you know, move my party 1 if they're at 2. So I think this is easier than having to go in and change names all the time. Let's see, shift 1 and 2. Yeah, I think those are the big ones. Mind control 1, 2, 3. It's nice if you're trying to like peel for your teammate. I think that's kind of the core, yeah, thing. So just to recap, your goal is going to be dots on as many targets as possible. Get your Devouring Plague up before you press Void Torrent. And now this is your burst window, right? So you want to press as many DPs as you can. And you want to Void Blast as much as you can, right? And that's basically it. Keep your dots up. Press your CC on cooldown, basically. And yeah, if you're ever kicked on Shadow, press a Flash Heal to give yourself damage reduction, and press Purge, because that gives you Insanity, and also removing defensive buffs is like a really good global a lot of the time. So that's basically it. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions.